Today we're talking about Harper 4.6, which was released earlier today. This update introduces vector indexing for AI-powered search, in addition to usability improvements such as a new plugins API, HTTP logging, and more. To walk us through why it matters, I'm joined today by Kris Zyp, who leads the development effort at Harper. So let's get into it. Kris, let's start from the top. What do you think people need to know about Harper 4.6? What's in this release, and why should developers or architects really care about this right now?
Well, I think one of the most exciting new features in 4.6 is vector indexing, which really opens up a lot of opportunities for semantic search, semantic caching, really unlocking the power of large language models, AI functionality, and leveraging that within the Harper database. Beyond that, there's a lot of usability improvements for component loading, logging, interaction with the resource API, and throughout the usage model.
Awesome. So let's talk about really this flagship feature here. So vector
Yeah.
indexing, what does this unlock for users and kind of this real world use cases?
Sure. So the basic idea of vector indexing is that we can take text, things that are often understood by natural language processing or large language models, and represent them with a vector of numbers, and then do efficient searching on them. And so that's called semantic searching, because we can take a corpus of text and be able to match it with other similar text, even if it's not exactly the same words, but it's the same concepts. And so this really unlocks the ability to do semantic search, and it does this type of searching using vector indexing with a algorithm called hierarchical navigable small world indexing, which is very efficient, fast, and accurate for finding the best results. And so this really does unlock a lot more natural language style
Uh-huh.
searching, interacting with large language models, and be able to unlock a lot of the powers that those provide.
Awesome. So how does this embedding this capability directly into Harper differ from kind of relying on like what a lot of people do, which is like separating their vector database into another technology? How's that embedding really help here?
Well, one of the key advantages of Harper is this idea of a fused or integrated stack. And so Harper really provides the opportunity to combine application logic with direct access to data. And by incorporating vector indexing into that, that takes you one step further. So with Harper, we have a distributed database. And so what this unlocks is a user can make a semantic search that can go to a geographically distributed local server with very low latency. That semantic search can then be directly serviced. A search can be performed locally. And then on top of that, it can actually integrate with application logic, perhaps integrate with query parameters or modify the search of the results in some way, even access other data tables, potentially interact with blobs or other resources, all locally in a region that's local to the user, and that whole process can take place without coming back to a central server. And so this integration of vector indexing and semantic search with the rest of the Harper stack really unlocks all of those things coming together to give you that incredibly high performance capabilities in combination with these very modern language capabilities.
Okay, so performance is really kind of a big deal here, like vector indexing,
Yeah,
but probably one of the more performant ways of doing it.
yeah.
Does this have implications on like cost efficiency by doing these kind of computations on the edge, rather than going back to a central service or having it as a separate service?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're always going to incur more costs when you're jumping across different servers. And in addition to just the performance costs, I think what you're looking at towards is there's a lot of costs involved in deserialization, reserialization, bringing things in and out of caches. And so by being able to take this data and directly get a search result and then instantly have potentially directly in-memory access to related data uh, is not only sidestepping a lot of the performance costs, but it's sidestepping a lot of the inherent complexity and resource costs involved into connecting different machines, maintaining them, and all the costs involved in that.
Okay. So it's kind of diving in specifically to one of the big use cases here, like vector indexing empowers semantic search. But with Harper, we have a caching built in. So really, I think what we're empowering a lot of times is semantic caching. Can you explain to us like why semantic caching is valuable?
I think one of the reasons that semantic caching is of importance is oftentimes when we're dealing with these types of AI-driven situations, we're actually doing things that are often very resource computational. We may be asking questions that require uh, uh, generation that takes some time. And so being able to cache the results of that, if it could potentially service multiple other questions or users, is highly valuable. And so with semantic caching, one of the things that we can do is potentially unlock the ability to receive a question, generate an answer for it, cache that answer, and then if another question comes in that's basically the same question, maybe with a little different spelling, capitalization, but the same question conceptually, our semantic searching capabilities are able to identify that it's a close enough match with an existing cached entry that can then be returned. And so semantic searching in combination with caching allows us to use basically that semantic nearest neighbor matching to find entries in a cache and really leverage both Harper's semantic searching capabilities and Harper's natural embedded robust caching functionality together in an integrated way.
Uh, So thinking about one of our large customer bases right now is e-commerce. They essentially Harper is really performant, so they can find a way to correlate increase in performance directly to revenue within the e-commerce space. How does this like highly performant semantic caching, vector indexing that we're offering here? How does that empower brands in the e-commerce space to earn more revenue? Can you make that connection for us?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think one of the clear opportunities is you can do product searches based on very fuzzy searches. You can ask a question: What do I need? What kind of tool do I need to repair this part of my car? And it could potentially return products that don't even necessarily have that same text in it, but there's a semantic matching that occurs. And so that's a lot of the direction that e-commerce is really going these days, is being able to not just have these simplistic searches for products, but be able to respond to more complex questions and be able to return results. And so by being able to integrate directly with database information, it's able to do that much more efficiently. It can potentially pull in information about inventory, ratings, all of that stuff can be combined with semantic search capabilities. It can also be used to answer questions that may come from reviews and user feedback. All of those types of things fit very well with the semantic search capabilities and are often an integral part of the full e-commerce experience.
Awesome. Let's say a team is looking for a solution today, or maybe they already have a solution in place and they're looking at improving that performance. What kind of like performance difference might the devs notice in practice when powering essentially their search bar within their applications with Harper compared to alternatives?
Well, there's a lot of different ways that users can go, or you can go about using this. And as you get into performance, this does get a little bit into the technical details. There's opportunities to certainly use existing APIs through like OpenAI, and certainly those will be more time consuming as they go to third-party servers. There's also the possibility of using local language models. And with those, oftentimes you can experience incredibly low latency where everything directly happens on the same computer. We've often measured being able to actually create vector encodings of questions and do full searches in a couple hundred milliseconds, which is extremely fast for anything AI related. But certainly there's a large spectrum, but Harper really eliminates a lot of the overhead that allows you to focus on delivering the absolute essential parts of that equation to the user as fast as possible.
Awesome. Anything else that people should know about semantic caching or vector indexing before we move on to the next item?
I think that it's just there's a lot of opportunities for really being able to integrate a lot of functionality together, and I think that's the ability to compose different pieces of functionality together, I think is really going to unlock a lot of possibilities. So it'll be fun to explore what people can do with that.
Yeah, certainly. All right, so now thinking about the new plugins API. I know that's with that we're supporting dynamic loading. Can you explain what that is and why it matters for teams building with Harper?
Yeah, sure. This really has a lot to do with improving the ease of use and availability of Harper and being able to dynamically update components and settings and configuration on the fly. And so typically, the way a lot of systems have typically worked is you have a piece of code and you just have to restart whatever system or refresh that system to utilize that new settings or configuration. And so this is unlocking a lot of new paths for being able to really dynamically update applications, components in Harper on the fly. And so one of the ways that we are immediately leveraging that is in integration with our logging functionality and being able to dynamically adjust logging, apply that to different components in Harper, apply that to HTTP logging, turn HTTP logging on and off on the fly. And so those things all fit together is the new plugin API along with our dynamic capabilities.
It sounds like this really helps us kind of align more to a microservice paradigm where people can like individually turn on and off different things. Is that fair to say?
Yes, absolutely. And this is very much aligned with our general strategy of unlocking more opportunities to be able to seamlessly use Harper with minimal concern about the underlying hardware, infrastructure, servers, and what's powering it, and just simply be able to deploy, update those deployments as needed with minimal downtime, effort, and as seamlessly as possible.
So the word composable or extensible really comes to mind here. That this really helps us kind of execute on that. Is that fair?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. As you bring together more parts, components in your application, this ability to do so seamlessly without any extra overhead really makes that a easier experience.
Awesome. So kind of turning now to HTTP logging. What do people need to know about HTTP logging and why does that one matter?
HTTP logging can be really helpful just for general debugging. A lot of times you have a server and there's requests coming in and you want to be able to understand what those requests are, how they're interacting with the system, and potentially debug some of the code that you've written. And so HTTP logging just is very helpful for simply listing the HTTP requests that come in and being able to correlate it with different application logs and understanding what's taking place.
That makes sense. I also heard there were some updates happening to the resource API. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, these have just generally been general ergonomic improvements, working to make it easier and more consistent to have the mappings from basically REST methods to the resource API. One of the underlying concepts of the whole resource API is this kind of very harmonious connection between RESTful endpoints and the data model. And so we've been working to just continually improve the consistency of how those interact and doing more to ensure that all of the objects that are used within the resource API, you can interact with them in a very intuitive way. They have normal enumerability properties and things like that.
Awesome. So sounds like a lot of great things coming to 4.6. Vector indexing kind of being the headline here, but there's a lot of great ergonomic improvements as well. So zooming out a bit, thinking again about vector indexing, what does this release really signal about Harper's direction in AI and the edge computing space?
I think that Harper is going to be a significant player in this space. We're continuing to explore new ways that we can really leverage AI and empower AI One of the things that's important about this area is that it's not just about like, how can we use the latest AI thing, but how can AI leverage our functionality as well? And so one of the new things that we've also been working on is an MCP server, and that was
Okay.
recently released. And that really unlocks the ability to use a Harper application database as a driver for AI agents for retrieval augmentation generation. And so that's something we're very excited about. And so these things kind of fit together in the holistic story of how we are continuing to lead the way in an integrated stack that integrates well with AI.
Awesome. Looking forward to exploring that more. We'll definitely have additional content around the MCP server coming out. So be sure to check that out if you're watching this now. So thanks, Kris. This was awesome. Harper 4.6 is available now. And if you're looking to level up your AI powered digital experiences or reduce complexity in your backend, now's the time to dig in. Thank you so much.